Well, hello and welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and see what we can get into. We're going to do a little bit of Bob Lazar with George Knapp interviewing him. And this is a hard one to find or even attain. So this is my second shot at it. Hopefully the recording is better quality. Pick it off an AM station. So here we go.
I thought maybe we start with a couple of questions sort of let you get to know Bob a little bit. So they played one of the great Super Bowls of all time last month. Which of the teams did you like? Really? We're going to do some other I don't even know who played. That's right. Tomorrow's the Oscar broadcast. Who do you think is the best pick? Yeah, I don't know. You don't like to play. Yeah. Breaking Bad or Sopranos, which of those series do you like best? Yeah, well, you're just not on my channel. Because you live, what I'm trying to convey is you live in Bob world, right? What do you do? Tell them what you do now. I live in a scientific bubble. That's just about it. I mean, it's my work is my life. Whether I'm working or having fun, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's I pretty much do the same thing. Where do you live and what do you do? Your business? I unfortunately live in Michigan. I would really like to be back there. But yeah, the business is United Nuclear Scientific. We sell and build lots of scientific equipment and supply to schools, universities, and government. Everybody. We also do contract work. We do R&D work, design, construct, prototype, gadgets, weird things for different companies. If they have a problem or something they're trying to solve, they'll come to me and just say, "We make this work." So we do. But the bulk of it is really just selling scientific equipment and supply. Trying to bring that back. Back when I was a kid, you used to be able to go into a hobby store and buy chemicals and have a chemistry set. Now, if you see any drive somewhere in somebody's house, you just think they're cooking up meth or something like that. So, we try to change the tide and bring back hands-on stuff and, the current generation. That's one of the stories a little about you, right? Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Do you have any government contracts? We do government contracts. You see where that could go. People, he's working for the government, they're paying him all. He did his job, spread this information. Now he's working for the government. You're not working for the government. No, I don't work for the government, but if there's contracts, I hit on it. Every faction of the government doesn't know what the other one's doing. It's a complete mess. What do you give an idea? The question is raised here on the scientist. What scientist are you? I haven't been to your house in Michigan, but the last time I visited you, it was in Mexico. And there was something built in the house that they're building right behind your home. It was, as I recall, a 30-foot particle accelerator. Yeah. You built it? Yeah. And what did you do with it? What do you do with your home particle accelerator that's 30 feet? Well, at the time, we're working on an efficient way of storing hydrogen for automotive use, so it can be used as a fuel. And some of the most efficient hydrides, materials that absorb hydrogen like a sponge absorbs water, were restricted because they're used in thermonuclear hydrogen bombs. And so you couldn't purchase these materials, but there's kind of a loophole in the law where you could make them. So I had to make a particle accelerator to make the material that we use and run tests on. So that's what that was all about. You moved to Michigan in part because you thought that you were going to have some help from state government with the system, right? Yeah, kind of. I mean, a lot of things changed. I mean, we moved partly because of, family reasons out there, and just to get a change from the Southwest, which I regret. And, yeah, there was a lot of, at the time, there were a lot of unemployed auto workers, and we thought, we can hire those, but, a lot of things happened. A recession happened, and also at the same time, around 2008 or something, the Chinese, who at the time were making a lot of rare earth elements, because they did it cheaply, and the U.S. mines had shut down years beforehand, decided, boy, now we pretty much control the market on it. We're going to go ahead and crank up the price, 10 or 100 times what it was, and it really made what we were doing impossible to do profitably. So, your business is science related. You sell scientific equipment. You build things like a particle accelerator and jet car engines and things of that sort. But I think if you heard me talking earlier, you'd have to agree with a lot of people that you don't fit the mold as a typical scientist. I mean, you're not a member of any science organizations, are you? No. You write papers, you submit papers. I mean, not typically, not in the normal sense. I mean, when I first went to Los Alamos, what was really annoying to me was the typical pompous, self-righteous scientist, and they would come into town and interact with the ordinary people, and use terminology that was over their head just to get them to say, well, what do you mean by that? And they just would puff up and they boost their ego, and it really annoyed me. So when I worked there, I relabeled some important equipment, whirly gig or something along those lines, and it really pissed them off, and it's really just to make a long story short, I was a new guy coming from the West into the hardcore scientific field, and it really I was able to run circles around these guys because they followed a set path and a set amount of things. Their support teams were very limited and weren't engaged in them because they had no idea what was going on. They never took the time to bring these guys in. But I don't know. I just looked at things from a different point of view, and I simplified things. So explaining technical matters on a simple level, and I do that a lot. And people say, "Well, boy, you don't talk like a scientist." Yeah, I'm trying to make everyone understand. But and it works. If you talk on a simple, basic level, everyone is going to understand what you're talking about. It's easy to talk over everybody's head, but all that does is make you look like an idiot. When I first met Bob, I remember going to his house, and there was a skull and crossbones flag flying over his house at the time. He had this giant jet car parked in the driveway. He had these videos that he shared with me that we used on his reports where it's a lot of machine guns. A lot of really interesting kinds of interests that you don't associate with scientists. I mean, you heard my comparison to Edward Snowden. I hope it made you uncomfortable. I mean, it's sort of the same thing. There was a guy who had no academic credentials. He didn't make it through high school. He took online hacking classes. He worked as a security guard. The next time they hear from him, he's working. He becomes a computer expert for CIA and NSA. And sort of fits the mold. He doesn't fit the mold. The same sense you do. But he fits the new mold. He doesn't fit the old mold. This is what we're used to seeing. But I don't need a degree. No. They're looking for talent. I think they learned a long time ago that they were missing a lot of creative people. People that would think outside the box. And if you really want to move forward, that's where it is. Especially with computers. Oh, yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Let's get to your flight cells. You got hired through EG&G to work for the USA. Yeah. You remember the first day out there? Well, first day out at the facility. Well, the first day was going to Area 51 proper and signing all the agreements and doing all that stuff. Signing agreements. What kind of agreements did you sign? It was really paperwork and going over, exactly what I was going to be doing. It was a lot of security stuff. I mean, they were questioning my family, where we had moved. It was, boring, nothing. You'd been around talking to everybody you knew. Yeah, clearly. And because I already had previous security clearance, it made it a little earlier, as opposed to somebody starting from scratch, which typically takes like 13 months for them to do a top secret civilian Q. Did you have the clearance that you needed to work there when you started working there? No. I just had a convenient starting point for you know, they didn't have to go back to the day I was born and see to verify that. They go, okay, well, we have clearance here, and we'll go from there.
So you get on a plane in Las Vegas,
Yeah, right.
fly up there, they put you in a bus down in there.
Oh, yeah, we're on that score, right?
Yes, so you don't think, you landed, like,
Under 51, and then,
sign some papers.
yeah, if you want to make it a short version, yeah, right.
You told me the story that they started showing these briefing books that sort of laid out the general story. Was that in that role, or was that?
That was an S4. No, that material would never get north of
People
S4.
were waiting to say, I never heard any of this stuff.
Of course.
Funny flying saucers.
There is no flying saucers cover 51. No, that's, but 51 is, it's only just lots of people working there. It'd be hard. When I worked at S4, again, I have no idea how it is today, but, you know, back in my day at S4, there were 22 people that had clearance and knowledge of the ET material, ET crafts. That was it. We were given the list. We knew the names on the list. That was it. I still know the names on that list today. And those are some of the things that I never say anything to you about, because, well, exactly. There has to be some stuff I keep to myself, because you know how many times people said, yeah, hey, I worked out there with Bob and so on and so forth. Really? Who are you? What'd you do? And whatever. And it's only the stuff I said. I'm waiting for the guy that says, hey, yeah, I worked out with you, and here's some of the other people on the list. Or we did this, or is that, so it's, if I don't keep that stuff, there's nothing I have to verify if some other guy comes up to me.
You see all those, I mean, you get emails all the time, or you read stories, or you hear claims on, if you watch television, about people who claim they've been out there, and obviously they're making it up.
Well, I mean, the most recent was this,
What's it?
I think it was like, yeah, like the CIA guy or something like that. Was it?
It was an anonymous guy who had it.
He was dying or he died. Yeah, and a lot of people asked me, hey, and he was very, very supportive of me, and but I never heard of him. And what am I going to say? I have never heard of the guy and never seen him.
Back to day one, you're at Rome, you take a bus to S4 hours.
Yeah, I'm an old Bluebird school bus, but maybe it was.
How did you know it was called S4? Did you read that on something?
That was what they said.
That's what they called it.
Yeah.
Did you ever see it written down?
Yeah.
And it's an S, a 4, or S, 4, or SFOUR, or
No, it's a numerical force.
S4. And so you get to S4, and you see what? Describe what you saw.
Well, the first time I went, we went around, it's kind of hard to describe. There's that little mountain or rise, whatever, that ends. And the first time, I have to admit, I didn't notice it. We just drove around, and I thought it was just a flat part of the mountain. At the very end is an entrance, a flat wall with doors, and that's where we parked. We went in. And that's the first time I went into the facility at all. That's where I was taken into the medical facility. That's where I was given the briefings initially, and it wasn't until the second time that I was taken down there that we stopped in the middle, because the side that I thought was flat was actually hangar doors that were really cleverly blended into the side.
It looked like this.
Yeah, great job.
When you're inside, can you see all the hangar doors? Or you can only see all 9 of them, or whatever it is from outside?
What do you mean?
If you were inside, looking in one hangar, can you see all the way down and see all of them? See more? Or is there separate?
Yeah, there's inside each hangar bay, there's, if there's the big door that goes to outside, inside on the side, it's the whiteboard, there's, oh, what the hell? Okay. All right, this is good. Okay, so. Is that making any sense? So there's the doors here where this is, Packers Lake. The main doors here roll up. However, inside there are regular doors, and on one occasion these doors were all open. And when I came in through here on the first, well, I think it was the first time they showed me around with the craft. These doors were, these doors were all open, and you could see that there were different craft in each. So those are the doors we're talking about.
Let's talk about the world games, whatever you want. So, talk about the first time you saw one of them.
The first time I saw one of them was the second time I came in. The last bay door was open. That was the sport model that was sitting in here. We pulled up, we stopped, instead of going around in the front normal entrance, we went in through the big bay door.
Before you see these posters, but that were on the walls.
Yeah, they're here posters.
Describe that.
Yeah, they went through the trouble of actually making a picture of the sport model that was lifting, obviously off of Papoose Lake, because you can see the background there, and it just says they're here. And it was like a commercial poster. I mean, they looked like they were lithographed, and they must have been printed on site. They wouldn't have done that out there.
Because that's somebody's idea to kill.
Yeah, it was good to see that level of lightheartedness.
First day you get a look at the sport model, what are you thinking to yourself? Oh my God, what are you thinking?
No, it was alien flying saucer did not enter my mind. It was exactly the opposite. That this explains all the UFO sightings. That we have some fuel propulsion technology. It has to be in this shape or form, flying saucer type, and this is what people have been seeing for a long time, thinking that they're alien craft, and it made perfect sense to me. It's like, great, I really like to be part of this project. Advanced propulsion, this is dynamite. So I was excited to be part of it. In fact, we went by it, and I think I even mentioned to you, it had a little American flag stuck on it, and I dragged my hand across it, and it felt like cold, so I just assumed it was metal and got yelled at immediately. Don't keep your hands at your side, walk forward. All right.
You're thinking to yourself, oh man, I am part of the coolest inside history because we've got flying saucers that we've made, or we're playing a joke on everybody.
No, I wasn't really playing a joke. It was that, this is cool technology, and at any time we feel like we can probably just take over the world.
So at what point do you realize we didn't make it? How did you learn that? Was that the briefing books?
Well, yeah, the briefing books just did not make any sense. We started into, that actually predated seeing that, and I really don't know. The briefing books covered a little bit about a lot of topics, and it dealt with analysis of, it was all back engineering material, analysis of metal, power systems, and the way things were, even the way things were laid out within the craft. And again, it really had me confused. Going it was so far beyond what I was expecting. Is this some kind of test, or is this actual material? So it just, I come through everything and went, okay, and just went on from there. But it really didn't hit me until I went in. I was introduced to my working partner, who was Barry Castillo, or whatever I pronounce his last name. And the way they worked there was everything was very compartmentalized. So everybody had a buddy to work with. And that is the only person you can talk and converse with and bounce ideas off of. You can't talk to anybody else in any other group. You can't, even if you go sit and there's a bunch of other people around, you can only talk to the guy, your buddy, they call him. So anyway, so he was my buddy, and the first day we went in there, he was excited to show us everything, and it seemed like he had been alone for too long. And he was, really excited that I was there, and I was kind of picking up on his enthusiasm, going, well, he said, boy, you weren't gonna just, I'm dying when you see this, and one of the first things he did was, fire up one of the reactor that had been taken out of the ground. The reactor is it's a small device. It's probably just roughly a foot square with a half a hemisphere on it. Anyway, so there's really nothing there. the top comes off and there's like a little tower on it. It doesn't. Oh, this is my eraser.
You see the drawing in the back?
No, all these guys can. Yeah, that's not good. There's very little about this. Essentially, you know, for size comparison, half a basketball on a plate. That was probably no, nothing. I mean, it's just incredibly simple. There was nothing there that could do anything. It was too small to hold any large power source. Anyway, the top came off. And he put the top on, and then he said, "Go ahead and grab the sphere." And as my hands approached it, I couldn't touch it, which was fantastic. And if you ever played with magnets, I'm sure everybody has, you take two light poles of a magnet and you can kind of show it down. It was exactly like that, but it was more magnetic. And since you're feeling an artificially produced gravitational field, and that really floored me. And you know, then I began to run through in my mind, how can this be a joke or fake? It's just, there's no way. And that's the first time that it was kind of a domino effect than what I had read in the briefings, and then these guys aren't kidding. This is unbelievable.
Let's go back to briefings for a second, and we'll come back and you tell us a little bit more how this operates. In the briefing books, you see the craft described. And then you get into some more exotic stuff. And really, you had to wonder, are they messing with your head?
Yeah, it was a one and only briefing, whatever you want to call it, or an overview of it. And it was split, the entire program there was split into individual projects, and you know, each had an overview of each project, and each group got an overview of all the other projects, in case there was some connection to what they were doing, but it was clear they didn't want everybody to know everything. And although the military loves doing that, it really screws up trying to move forward and
To compartmentalize,
it's insane, but they really enjoyed it. But anyway, the only thing that dealt with any kind of, you know, biological, yeah, it's essentially what you call them. It was just a view of a creature, and the closest estimation I can give you is a gray, because it had a head with the large eyes, but what they were focusing on was a T-cut in the chest, and it was one large organ, and the comments were about how it functioned as a liver, a lungs, a heart, as if all organs had grown together or evolved together, where it was just, I don't know, an all-purpose internal organ. Yeah, I guess I don't really have an analogy for it, but that was it. And they were, and the accompanying photographs were that organ removed. It was sectioned. It was showing the different chambers or indications of it. There were the weights of the different pieces that they removed. So again, I don't know where it came from. You know, where that this was just a briefing of something else, but it was.
There's nothing in the briefing book that says this comes from X planet, and you're wondering, it's not like they're messing with us, right? Are they messing with me in the test?
Right. I mean, well, it really didn't. It really didn't hit me at the time. It seems they wanted me up to speed really fast. So it was skipping too many places to make me feel comfortable. You know, at the time, I didn't realize that everybody got these, and you know, the people that dealt with biological connotations and everything were getting metallurgy reports. And again, it was just in case there was some connection. You know, you could kind of raise your hand and say, wait, you know, this thing might relate to us in some way.
Did Barry or anybody else tell you why they wanted to get you up to speed so fast? Was there some urgency there, or were they just tired of not making progress, or what was it?
That was never really clear. I know there was some accident prior to me being hired, and
You replaced somebody?
yeah, I replaced somebody. Somebody was killed, and it was playing with the reactor. And they said, "Well, we're going to be working on the reactor." And, well, but so yeah, there was obviously a lot of caution being taken. But from what Barry said and what Dennis said, who was my immediate supervisor, was that they were trying to make leaps and bounds way too fast, and I was certainly not planning on doing anything like that, especially here.
You seem to think to yourself, I shouldn't be here. Why they got me?
Yeah. Please, there's a billion people they could have hired, that I thought would have been, a better choice for that. But they really wanted somebody. It seems like they were stuck, and they wanted somebody coming from left field with just just get us out of the rut and just move something forward.
Yeah, but they get the right guy. The mayor.
I don't know if that's the way.
Let's go back and talk about the reality. So he showed you with this experiment in your hand, you could feel its force field, and how they think that if they were thinking those days.
No, I don't think.
Then you saw some other stuff, the golf ball.
Yeah.
Demonstration. Tell me that story. Tell us.
Well, that wasn't really supposed to be a demonstration, but in some way it was. And once I said that's unreal, this is a gravitational field, and you can see that it's extremely strong by it, and it tapers off, and it's following the inverse square law, which is gravity, radiation. The inverse square law is essentially the amount of energy dissipates really quickly as distance increases. So that was immediately noticeable to me, and he said, "Well, check this out." And we got a golf ball, and I aimed it at the thing. It bounced off the field, coming nowhere close to the reactor, and we have those suspended ceiling tiles, and it knocked him out of place. And he flipped out and said, Dennis is going to be back here to jump up on there. We're trying to arrange stuff and fix the thing, and he's knocking the reactor around and going, "Oh man, it's like first day, don't screw everything up." So, and I'm taking the dust off the thing, and the second we finish, Dennis walks inside and goes, "How things going?" Great, so it was something.
It's day one. You've read this interesting briefing. You don't know quite what's going on. You do see this technology. It's damn amazing. What is your job? What do they tell you you're supposed to do?
The bottom job is not to figure out how this thing works or let us know what the spec is. Just can we make another one of these? So just let us know if you can.
Can we duplicate it?
Can we duplicate it? Like it doesn't have to be exact, but find out how this thing works. If we need to make something that's bigger or do it just, but we want more of these things and just do it right now. So that was it.
And the answer is Canada? I mean,
no, we're just not even in the same ballpark.
Is it because of materials, or are we just on?
Yeah, it's both. Look, this is like dropping off an iPhone in the wagon train days. It's like, we're gonna need more of these.
Did you ask anybody, hey, where do we get these? Where do these come from?
No, I really, there was so much other stuff that was flooding my brain that was just amazing, and I was so excited to be there, and I didn't care where the thing came from. It was beginning to trickle into my mind, well, this is maybe flying sausage crash in South Africa or something. We got it. We're taking it apart. This is great.
You eventually saw all of them, or you saw glimpses.
So when I looked through the doors, I could see.
As far as you could tell, they didn't look like they'd been in a crash, right?
Well, there's one. There's one. And I mentioned this to you a long time ago. I never added this one thing, which I'll add now. There was one, like I said, that had been shot with a projectile. I know for a fact it came out of the water. That's all I know.
You know, for a fact, because that's what you were told.
Yeah.
So they had a great big projectile, like a howitzer shell or something like
God,
that.
it was about, it's hard to judge from distances, you know, like from here to the exit sign, how big is that? But I'm guessing it was, maybe a 9-inch diameter hole.
The sport model, no dents, no scrapes.
No, it looked like it came right out of the showroom.
And it looked like the Billy Meyer beam ship.
Yeah, from the pictures I've seen of the Billy Meyer one, which, you know, it looked fake to me, but no, there it is.
I'm sure the Billy Meyer people are happy about that, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of people don't take that case seriously.
It's either the most amazing coincidence of the face of the earth, or something really did happen to that guy, Billy Meyer.
So the sport model, that name's Roll.
Yeah,
Give me some other names.
well, there's one that looked like the top hat, and one was obviously a Jello mold, and you know, but they were just silly names because we were talking about him, and you know, they're talking about bird sticks, and I'm like, what's that? Is that the Jello looking thing? You know, so I gave them my names, and they stuck with them like they did in Los Alamos.
So the sport model, you got to know that one pretty well. You got to see.
Yeah, it's the only one I can say I hands-on, I touched, I walked in, you know, that I can say, well, the other ones could have been holographic projections to fool me, but this is the only one I know.
Before we talk about the test, one other thing about the reactor, I want you to use this example to sort of explain how it worked. You had told me a story about a candle and flame that was basically frozen. Tell me that story and why it gives us an indication of how this thing operated, what power it had.
Well, when we had, you know, after the golf ball incident, there was benches we had set up. The reactor was not the only thing in the craft. The reactor sits in the center. On the level underneath, there are, well, I should say in the reactor, surrounded by the reactor, there are 3 gravity amplifiers, as they were called. Directly under those, there are emitters, which are, probably like 55-gallon drums. There are 3 of them. They hang directly under the emitters, and apparently the way the device works, is the reactor supplies the base gravitational wave and power to the amplifiers, which channel it down to the emitters, which propel the craft. So, in addition to the reactor that was out of the craft, one of the emitters was also on the bench. Now, I don't know which craft this came out of. It was not out of the sport model, but they had the reactor operating and the emitter, and Barry had taken a candle and put it about, well, I'd say about 2 feet from the end of the emitter and lit the candle. And we fired up the reactor, and he said, go check out the candle. And the flame was there, but it wasn't moving. It was like a picture of it. It was just frozen. And now that makes you think of a lot of things. Oh boy, if it's, we know gravity and time are interrelated, and you know, one is essentially the other. And find if gravity, if it stopped or slowed time down there, how are photons still being emitted so we can see the light? It should just go black. You know, there are a lot of things make absolutely no sense whatsoever with the science we're familiar with. But these were just things he was showing me as a demonstration that, properties and what it's doing that are just so far beyond what we even know is going on. And this had nothing to do with the work. I mean, we're just supposed to make another one of these things somehow. So, yeah.
So help us understand what this technology means, how advanced it is. You know, it becomes obvious somewhere it's from somewhere else we can make it, because we're taking it apart to figure out how it works.
Like a machine that makes gravity is the most important thing that mankind could probably create. Like we have electromagnets that make magnetic fields, you know, we can make electric fields, we, you know, with anti-grav generators and, you know, God knows what else, but, you know, to make a gravitational field is like the last piece of a missing pie, because when you can, right now, the only thing that makes gravity, as far as we know, is mass. You just need a bunch of stuff, and it's a property of mass, and it just magically pulls in things. You know, we observe gravity, we see what it does, but we really don't know what it is. We can throw some equations together and say, well, it works like this, but we really don't know what's behind it. But if you can make a machine that on demand makes gravity, you know, all the stuff we write science fiction about stops becoming science fiction that afternoon. And force fields become a reality. You can shift time. I mean, everything becomes possible. It's the most important thing. And here is an operating machine sitting in front of us that makes gravity. And we really want to be able to make one of those things. I mean, you could make it penetrable fields. You can have propulsion that is mind-boggling as the crafts operate.
It would be the ultimate weapon.
Well, not just the ultimate weapon, but it would really be the ultimate thing. It would catapult mankind forward. And what really sucks is the military is in control of this.
I neglected to mention this in my presentation, but I talked about before, named Ben Rich, who Jim Goodall knows and interviewed several times. Ben Rich was the head of the Skunk Works, which was the big operating things at Ben Rich. And had been there to develop the U-2 and SR-71 and stealth. If anybody would know about advanced technology, it's him, Kelly Johnson. So a lot of people have speculated whether Ben Rich and those guys have incorporated alien technology into some of the advanced airframes that we've got. And I even had a chance to ask him on the day that the stealth was unveiled out there, tell us whether any alien stuff was in there. He said no, but other people have talked to him. Jan Harsander, who's here from MUFON, heard a speech that Ben Rich gave at UCLA, in which he basically said, we now have the technology to take ET home. We had the calculations slightly wrong, but we can do anything you can imagine. We can travel to the stars. But he said, the technology is locked up in black budgets and black programs and will never see the light of day. What do you think about that? Well, that's sort of like the same thing you're saying.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like what I'm saying. And I hope that's not the case, but I mean, how do you pry it out of there? It really, there should be a lot more people working on this. A lot more.
Well, that's sort of why you became disenchanted with it, but we'll come back to that. Let's talk about sport modeling. You got to see it fly. You got to see it test.
Yeah, once.
So,
Once close up. Barry and I were in the lab, we were working. Dennis came in and he said, there's a test flight going on. Bob, why don't you come out here? Barry, you can tag along too. And so we came in, side door into the hangar. The craft was already out onto the dry lake bed in front of, or the lake bed proper, but it was out in front of the door. And probably about 2 minutes after I got there, the craft just began to silently lift off the ground. And there was a guy between where I was standing and the door that had a small desk, and there was some sort of transmitter on it, and he was just on a microphone talking apparently to somebody in the craft. And at the time, that again immediately set a red flag in my mind going, that's not supposed to work either. There is a craft being powered and surrounded by an intense gravitational field. How are the radio waves getting into this thing? It just didn't make sense. But again, very few things did there, and I didn't have much of an opportunity to connect all the dots. But it lifted off the ground silently. There was an obvious high voltage corona discharge. It was beginning to get a little late, but you could see the purple blue glow. But as soon as it lifted off, 6-10 feet, that dissipated, and it just moved around and sat back down where it was. But it doesn't sound like much, but it was incredibly impressive. There wasn't a sound other than a little hiss when it first took off. But it's a big device. It moved around and sat down, and I mean, I was beaming. It was so cool.
You didn't get to see it, didn't fly off to Venus or anything.
No. This is their prize catch here. I mean, no one is going out there and taking it out of the atmosphere and risking it. I mean, there was a big deal Like I'm sure, I don't know if they knew how to get it into that mode, but, like the test flight data that I saw, they even were very careful on what days to take it above the mountain range where traffic was at its lowest in the surrounding area. So they were very concerned about who could see what and how much they risk the thing moving around. But it was quite a prized possession.
But you saw the reactor up close, and you saw the craft inside, not only the test, but you got in it.
Yeah, later on, it was, again, we have to look at everything. We're trying to figure out how this device works from nothing. So, and its technology, we can barely grasp. So, obviously the placement, orientation of the components and subcomponents might be critical to the operation of it. So, I was let in one time. There were several other technicians in there doing their own thing. I don't know what they were working on, but we wanted to see where the reactor was, how it was positioned, where the amplifiers were. And this is when, I described to you, there was access to a lower level to where the emitters were, which was a small hexagon-shaped area that had what I thought was a really creative, collapsible doorway. And I guess the only analogy is if you take, a 6-pack of beer that comes in bottles, and they take out the little divider there, if you stand it up by itself, it's really strong. It'll hold a lot of weight, but you can easily collapse it flat by the side. This is essentially a metal version of that, and it was a hexagon shape with a little hole, and you can walk on it. But you can just put your finger in the hole and pop it, and the whole thing snaps over so you have a hole you can stick your head upside down in, which is what I did. I just leaned in there, and they wanted me to see how specifically how the arms that held the emitters connected to the bottoms of the amplifier. And those in themselves were fantastic technology.
Describe the interior. What it looks like.
It's very, very bland. If I, again, to give you an analogy, I would say it was if you put all these components in there, and everything was made out of wax, heat it up for a bit and let it cool off. There was never a sharp angle anywhere. Anytime something sat somewhere perpendicular to it, it had a radius of curvature to it. Everything had a smooth curve everywhere. It was all one color.
Was it all one piece?
It looked like it was one giant injected molded thing, but there was not a seam, there was not a rivet, there was not a fastener. It was just all there.
Any buttons?
No.
A place to put in the key?
No, and there was no wiring.
You mentioned about, I'll use the term, furniture, because you got a lot, we both got a lot of
Furniture, yeah. Well, that was because this was, I think, the first interview on TV, and I was frightened for a couple of reasons. First of all, I wasn't supposed to be saying anything, and the fact that it was on TV, and I didn't know what kind of big mistake this was. So you asked me what was inside or describe, and I was trying to think of the word seats, and I couldn't in a million years get that out of my mind, and all I could say is there's furniture in there. And I know it sounded ridiculous, and everybody said, well, that guy can't be a scientist. He doesn't even know what seat is. And, it's just stress does that to you.
It was the size of it that was small.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, yeah, that's quite a critical point. Everything was very small. It looked like, maybe that's where it popped into my mind, because I was thinking of, the children's, furniture set or piece that you get for little kids that have, the little molded chairs and little tiny, but that's exactly what it looked like. It looked like a little furniture set for kids. So, obviously it was uncomfortable to walk around it. When you first come to the side, you have to hunch over. The only place you could stand up comfortably is right by the reactor on the side. So whatever built or used the thing was obviously smaller than my stature.
I'll come back to the term the kid. So somebody did the test, somebody was in it. They must have figured out a little bit about how it operates.
Yeah, obviously, and in the sport model, the one that I went in, they removed one of the amplifiers, which was really shocking to me. Now, the reactor and emitter, all those were in that one. So that must have come from another craft, which made me at least partially to believe that these all may have the same power systems in them, which, really makes you think that's.
So the one you had in the lab is you were working with.
Yeah, the component had to come from
Same one
somewhere.
was in the sport model.
Yeah, it wasn't the sport model. So, you can extrapolate and say, yeah, it's kind of like a Chevy. They all have the same kind of engine and they're different, but I don't know, it's all conjecture.
Let's talk about the fuel. So it's an interesting part of the story and a bone contention for a lot of folks. Element 115. How did you know it was 115? Describe its properties.
Describe its properties.
What does it do? Why is it so miraculous?
Well, let me put it this way: we weren't given the task to say, analyze the fuel, find out what it is, and they just, again, the thing was, and there was a lot of push to it, was what is that, and do we have it? And that's it. And these guys really do talk and think like that. It's just, what did you guys do today? We just looked at this the other day. But, if you remove the top of the reactor, there's a little tower there with a cap, and there's a triangular piece of fuel in there, what we call the fuel, because if we put that in, everything starts to work. We analyzed what was there. Now, somehow, again, we didn't have access to all the information, but somehow Los Alamos had something to do with either keeping or storing the fuel. Now, we did all kinds of tests on it, not just us. We had sent all our equipment to sit there. We don't have, all kinds of interesting spectrographs. But we had it tested, and we just wanted to see where this was in the periodic chart, what kind of peaks we get off of it, and maybe it's just a unique fuel, maybe it's just some a blend of a nuclear material. But when it became obvious that this isn't even on our usable periodic chart, that's essentially where we stopped. Said we weren't going to analyze the material and see if we could make it. We just wanted to know if it was something that we could possibly use, and it wasn't.
You told me that we couldn't make it. Why couldn't we make it?
Well, it's just like any heavy element or super heavy element, more specifically, the only naturally occurring heavy element, uranium. I mean, as soon as you get anything heavier than that, a larger number of protons, you have to make artificially. And that's a difficult job, because you either, like to make plutonium, which our country loves, you have to take other materials, put them in a reactor, let it run for a couple of years, and then you can, in the case of plutonium, you can chemically separate out the small quantity of that. Now, even heavier elements, there's more difficulty obtaining. There were extremely heavy ones, like 110. You have to make that on an atom by atom basis, an accelerator where you're, slamming, accelerating single atoms or beams of other atoms, near the speed of light, smacking them together, and it doesn't make a usable quantity. You may get the interaction you want, and it flies off and hits a detector, at a fraction of the speed of light, and you go, that was 115. And, that's when they say, we synthesize that's what it is. It's not like a cup pops out we've got some, it's just, a particle comes flying out, and you go, well, at these angles, at this magnetic moment, at that speed, it will be 115. And if you get a peak at that, when it comes off, it's a little display on the thing, and it will make 115. But, to actually make usable quantities, forget it would take, the entire resources of our country forever, to get a gram or so.
How much was up there?
Well, they say there was 500 pounds of the material. Now, was that recovered in a craft? Was that separate? They certainly didn't synthesize it, but where it came from, I have no idea. But again, Los Alamos had something to do with it because they renamed it LA 1000. I know there are shipments back and forth there, but I think it had to be, from what I understand, it had to, if you assume a cylinder of this material, it has to be machined into a cone, and that cone sliced, well, it has to be stacked first, like a bunch of quarters stacked on top of one another, then machined into a cone, and then sliced to be usable in the reactor. Now, all of that had to do with the metallurgical guys, and we weren't even allowed to know why, but I knew that was necessary for whatever it's worth.
Reactor doesn't work without 115. Did you ever do an experiment to try some other kind of fuel?
No, I mean, quite honestly, we really didn't know what was going on there. I mean, we had a basic idea of, at least we thought, again, we just had a report to what was going on, so it's not like you can ever say, you know, we really don't know, we've been working on this 2 weeks, you better come up with something. So it's, you know, look, we think it's an accelerator, and, you know, we've identified that that's, you know, 114, 115, 160, it looks like it's 115, it's an element, and you have to explain this stuff to guys that absolutely have minimal scientific background, and just try that when you're dealing with stuff that's not even, you know, from the earth.
So how does it work? I mean, how does it work? What you learn, you get a piece of it, a triangle, it's in it, and how does it function?
Really, you just put I wish I had that model there. So, is it really? Okay. You just put the fuel in there. There's a little cap that sits on top, and then as soon as you put it, nothing happens. As soon as you put the lid on, it turns on. There's no on switch. Yeah, and it's just it's like it changed residence or something. It just is on. Which makes you wonder, how does it work in the craft? Because no one's taken the lid off, because in the craft, it sits on the ground and there's a conduit that sits over it and goes to the top of the craft. So, but it's not clear how anything works in the craft.
And it generates gravity.
Oh yeah, it generates its own artificial gravitational field, and that lifts the craft off the ground.
We've had conversations in private about how this accounts for some UFO cases. I mean, it in effect achieves invisibility. People say,
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, because light it will bend it around there. And, sorry, I couldn't leave that stuff. That pretty important observation. When the craft was up, I mean, you could walk underneath and look straight up, and you can't see the craft until you step to the side, and it becomes visible again. It's quite amazing, you know. So it bends light, just like you know, you can see on a hot roadway in the summertime how heat would affect that coming off of you know. But here you're in a much more controlled situation, and the shape of the gravitational field, the artificial field around the craft, if you look at that and then we're able to stand in different vantage points, you can just look around it. Now, this isn't something new. We know this from, you know, looking at faraway stars. They call it gravitational lensing, where a star might be over here, but because we're looking around another star, it bends light, and, you know, but here again, here's an artificial source, a machine that does this, and that's everything. But yeah, like I said, all the science fiction things become reality. There's your invisibility cloak, there's your, you know, impenetrable force field, there's your field propulsion system, and, you know, you're even beginning to tamper with, you know, potential time travel.
it occurs to you, hey, this could work not only in space but underwater. Maybe that's why the Navy's interested in running the program. I mean, it's odd, and then it's the U.S. Navy running the program out there.
You know, that never occurred to me. No, I swear to this, I never even thought about that thing operating underwater.
I wonder how it's fine.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't understand why I wouldn't, but it'd be interesting to see what the water does.
You had said, I remember, I could barely get my pointy little head around it when we were first talking about this, but that if somebody had one of these and were out in space and wanted to come to Earth, in essence, they're not propelling themselves toward Earth. It works differently, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, the two modes that Knapp operated on are they label Delta and Omicron configuration. Delta meaning using all three amplifiers, and Omicron obviously meaning just one. And the way the crafts work is so normally you would have the three amplifiers hanging, the three emitters hanging down. In Omicron mode, a single one would swing sideways, and you would have the other two sitting like that. Now, what happens is the two that are facing straight down essentially act like a pedestal where they just keep the craft steady. The one swung out to the side creates a gravitational distortion off the edge. And these, in Omicron configuration, these things really fly unstable. They do not look like any sort of high-tech technology. To give you an example, if you put a bowling ball in the middle of your bed, and 2 feet away you take your fist and you push it down, the bowling ball rolls towards it. That's exactly how the craft operates. It focuses the single emitter and creates a gravity distortion, essentially a divot in space-time, and the craft rolls forward, in the distortion. So that's basically how the thing moves around. And so, and this is opposed to our conventional propulsion, whether you're using jet, rocket, propeller. We always take something and accelerate it out the back using the action-reaction principle and push forward. And these guys are doing it exactly opposite. They're creating a distortion in front of them.
When element 115, of course, when you're talking about this stuff, it did not exist. We're still years away from it. But you had told me in that first interview, look, we believe that there was an island of stability somewhere, 115, 116, somewhere in there. And maybe someday we'll be able to make it. It didn't exist then, but they made it exist. Tiny little piece, as you said. When that news comes out, some people said, aha, Bob was right. Others people say, aha, Bob was wrong, because this isn't 115 at all. It doesn't behave anything like what you said. There's about 500 pounds of it, that's for sure. So,
there's not 500 pounds.
I mean, like they had up there. 500 pounds of it.
No, obviously not. And, well, look, you're talking about physical quantities and also, atom quantities for fabricating. But, yeah, I mean, the island of stability isn't something that we came up with. I mean, that's been theorized since probably the 50s. That it just looks like, physical makeup or just geometric stacking, I guess, of protons and neutrons. In certain combinations, they're stable, and other combinations, they're not. Well, it looks like further up in the periodic chart, if we haven't ever had anything with 115 protons or something in that range, it looks like that might become stable. And, that was actually in our minds when we were trying to identify it. I said, boy, this thing is off the charts. Are we looking at the island of stability? And I'm beginning to get lost here.
Well,
where are we going with this?
The 114 that was synthesized.
Oh, yeah, so the 115, again, I think what did they whack together? Calcium and, I don't know, bismuth or something like that. But they did a unique collision accelerator, so they made, a few atoms of it, and they went, this is, 115. And it decayed. Now, obviously, this is a stable material, but it's like I said, there's, we have hydrogen that's, 1 on the periodic chart, just like 115 is 115. There's 1 proton, 115 is 115 protons. Well, it's hydrogen, which is protium, which we're all familiar with, hydrogen gas. It's flammable, it's stable, it doesn't decay. But there's 2 other isotopes of hydrogen. It's still hydrogen, still element 1. And one we call deuterium, has 2 protons. It's also stable. But it's different, it's heavier. And there's another one called tritium, which is radioactive and it decays. About half-life about 12 and a half years. Again, they're different isotopes, they have different numbers of neutrons, they have the same amount of protons, so it's the same thing. No doubt 115 has, God knows how many isotopes. We know at least one is stable. There's probably several that are unstable. And, again, if they keep playing around with it, and I don't see why they wouldn't, I'm sure they're going to find a stable isotope. And,
well, again, anti-gravity propulsion. We've heard it from scientists. That guy, Lazar doesn't know what he's talking about. That's impossible. It violates this and violates that. But you've heard it. You don't.
I was one of the guys that say it violates this.
You would have said that before, yeah.
Yeah.
You would have said things about UFO people. This can't be. I mean, you were pretty dismissive about
which is the way I shouldn't be, and I give a lot of people, crap about that too, because, look, if you're gonna work in a scientific field, you're gonna be a scientist, in any capacity. The most important thing is to keep an open mind, because, look, back in time, I said, 30 miles an hour is the fastest the human body can possibly take, and that was written as a scientific fact. I mean, that's what scientists believed then, and they all agreed on it. And, how many other things that we, it's this is the way it is. You cannot do that. You have to keep an open mind. But flying saucers, I used to laugh at John Lear and have a good time with it. I still do, but that's a different story. But, I have to give him credit. He was talking about, they have flying saucers up at Area 51. Really, John? Just being an adult now. But, there's a lot. As far as the technology, yeah, it violates a lot of what we know, which concerns me, because some of the things we know are laws. And the reason we call them laws and not theories is because they've been verified time and time again, with experimental proof. And, it's supposed to be cast in stone. So you don't want to see anything that violates the law.
You see any aliens up there? I know several of the people who submitted questions wanted to ask about aliens. I mean, you did see.
This came from, the diagram you can call that seeing an alien. The only other time I know is because this one incident I told, that one time I was being let in and dragged my hand across the craft. We went in that door, there's a corner to the right, and you immediately turn to go to the left. Well, as you turn to the right, there's a door, and it has a small, window on it that has the little wires running through it. I peeked in there as we turned the corner, and that's when I saw, I've told you this before, there were two guys there and a little tiny thing that they were looking down at, and I just walked by, I told to keep my eyes forward, and, I think I told Gene that and a couple other people, and I said, well, you probably saw, well, not that Gene said that, but, you probably saw an alien or whatever. I don't think that was the case. I think even to this day, I think they had a little doll or something, because they were trying to find out, whatever size creature would fit in the craft. And,
you recognize the term the kids? You ever heard the term the kids?
Yeah.
And that's referring to
the creatures that was the trends.
So they call them the kids, where it was.
Yeah.
Craft came from. But you never got an answer how we got them.
No, that was just incidental talking that,
So,
had nothing to do with it.
you've heard all this stuff over the years, and of those who don't believe your story, they believe you're either making it up or it's disinformation that you're working for them out there that's spreading the story. So, you're making it up?
No, sorry.
You're making it up?
No, really? No, I'm sorry. That's way too much for me to handle. No, really, I don't. And I know, look, a lot of people are into, UFO stuff, and I just kind of exploded onto the scene and said, hey, I don't follow UFOs, I don't follow reports, I don't know who's researching what, I don't know the names of people involved, and but on the other hand, I know people make their living doing this sort of thing, and I just pop in one day and say, hey, this happened to me, I did this and this and this, but I'm out, I'm not part of this. I can understand how that can interfere with their income stream or their belief system or whatever, and they need to attack me. But look, what I said happened, absolutely happened. Period. That's it.
I've been speaking about you for a long time. A couple times a year, I'll explain the story from my perspective and defend you because it deserves to be defended, and I believe the story as it's been told. You go out there and you hear all kinds of crazy theories about what you're doing and who you work for and everything. And there are those who have a lot of trouble.
I can understand that. Look, if the tables were reversed, I honestly could not say I would believe my story. There's not enough, I can't provide enough information, in some cases it won't, to back up my story. And, if the tables are reversed, I have to take that other side and go, look, God, unless you can, provide more proof, I just can't say that, I'm behind it. And I have to agree with that.
So why do things go south for you? It seems like a scientist's dream to work on a program like this. Why in the world would you walk away from that or tell anybody else about it? Were you picked because they figured you would tell somebody about it?
No. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Well,
what happened was, it was kind of more of a personal nature between my wife and I at that time. Now, it's not like I had a 9-to-5 job and they said, come out at these hours. It was really a sketchy setup that they would call me. The place in EG&G by the airport, what was that?
It was on Sunset Road. Yeah.
I think it was called something, I can't remember. Anyway, they would call me and say, it's now 8:45. By 9:15, we expect you to be, at the building and board the crowd. And, yeah. So, it would be at a moment's notice like that. Well, and I was so really thrilled to be part of this project. I was keeping with the whole program. Like, I couldn't talk to my wife. I said, look, I'm working at the test site there. It's on secret nuclear stuff, and that's it. But again, I get calls in the middle of the night. She can't hear who they are. And I said, I got to go. It's work. You have to go to work at 8 o'clock at night. We may not be back, until the middle of the night or morning. I said, yeah, that's just the way it goes. And that happens, time and time again. And, if the phone picks up and, my wife picks it up, they hang up, and, so then they call back, I pick up the phone, yeah, it's Bob here, and okay, 2 hours, I'll be there. Well, after a while, that seems like something else. If they're maybe not after a while, but pretty quick. And, it's something I could laugh at now, but it was not funny then. And, I kept with the program, never said anything to her, and, she thought I was having an affair. And, as time went on, going back and forth, she really didn't have a job or anything to do, so I started, since I was making money from here now, I got her flying lessons down at McCarran Airport, and to give her something to do. And anyway, she started having an affair with a flight instructor. So, I had no knowledge of this, but, part of the requirements of the project and the security requirements really were to have my phone monitored. Now, I'm going back and forth to work, and now they are listening to this affair progress on the phone that I know nothing about. And, one of the main things is that you be, mentally stable. And they're really concerned about that. So it reached the point one day where they didn't call. And they were kind of in a quandary at that point going, what are we going to do with Lazar? We got to see if either this, affair fizzles out or they break up or whatever. So, I just stopped coming in. I stopped getting calls. I called Dennis. I don't get return calls, and days are going by, and now Tracy's going back and forth and flying and doing stuff. She's busy all the time because she's got a boyfriend, and I'm beginning to get really concerned. I mean, these guys are so over the top of security, and we want to know everybody that knows this material. We want to know where they are 24 hours a day, so on and so forth. And everybody calling, what's going on? And so I started getting concerned. I reached a point where I don't know where the breaking point was, but I'm pretty sure it was Gene Huff, the first guy that I talked to, and said, kind of spilled my guts, saying, look, this is what I've been doing out there, and told Tracy too, and hey, let's go see him. Yeah, well, I also had, we're skipping over lots of stuff, but I had there were charts of the test flight days and which days that they were going to go over the mountain and do what they call high performance tests. So those days, statistically on that highway, they went by the lowest number of travelers was on a Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, I think 8 o'clock was like the test night. So I knew how long they were going to be in there. I know all that stuff just from memory. So I told these guys, I said, this is going to be an unbelievable story, but this is what I've been doing. I can go out there and show you guys, but I'm starting to get concerned that they don't like me anymore for some reason, and I'm just going to disappear. So I just want somebody else to see what I have done in case I'm just gone one day. At least you guys have a story. And so we go out there, take everybody, and the story. We go out. It's 8 o'clock. Everything happens like I said, and lands, and then now it finally hits Tracy. Oh my God, he wasn't having an affair, and so she breaks off the affair reason, and it was just a giant mess.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is the human side of the story that.
But
the other human side, as I alluded to in my talk, is that there's something happened to you in that period after they caught you. The third time they went out, they got caught, and so they want to talk to you. And they're very upset. Dennis, in particular, the guy.
Oh yeah.
So they want to talk to you, and then a whole series of really bad things start happening. Share with us a little bit about what that period was like, because it's hard to convey it. It was really awful, but it was real.
Yeah, it was. Well, I guess it started when we got caught. When we got caught that time. I can't quite remember which time that happened, but we had gone out again with the test flight data 2 times and been there on Wednesday nights, and Gene Huff, and we had an ever increasing amount of people that we began to trust to go out there, and which was getting really ridiculous. I think we brought a motorhome out there. Parked out on the road because
Nothing.
now, once you start getting away with something, you get a little cocky and think, well, they can't see us. So we're out there, and Gina and I kind of joke around sometimes and say some stupid stuff, pretending that someone's out there listening. So we're sitting out there on the dirt road. The test flight time is coming up. We're sitting, leaning on the front of the car, and Gene says something to the effect of, well, I hope out there they don't realize that we've got those other 150 team members out back with automatic weapons and everything, and they're getting ready to storm the base. And I said, they can't possibly know these guys, And so right after we said that, it's pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Not 50 feet in front of us, we saw a little green thing fall on the ground and roll to us. And we were all sitting there, what? And as it turned out, there were a whole bunch of guys standing there in the dark watching us through night vision scopes. And after I said that, a guy dropped one and it rolled over to us. So they turned on the lights. Okay, everybody come with us. And
I told the story about the break-in in the car. I mean, I remember going to your house after a break-in, and you had the Uzi out, you're ready to shoot somebody, and then the break-in at the car at the gym. That stuff really happened. It was really going on.
Oh yeah, that was Mario, the guy. he's a truck driver now. He was going to, and we were just working out at a local gym near us, and I was at this is at probably the highest paranoia stage, and I had a, an Uzi in the front, and Mario and I got to the place, and they said, okay, it's loaded here, we're safe to go outside, and we open the car doors, we close them, and we may even make a joke about it. We lock the doors, we try and open them, say, okay, the car's secure, we go in there, and joking, you think we'll be safe for half an hour, and yeah, I think we can do it. And we come walking out, there's all the doors, the trunk's open, the Uzi's laying out there, my wallet, we just looked at each other, this is impossible. But yeah, that happened. Mario tells that story probably every day.
You, at some point, you decided to talk to me. We did that interview at Silhouette.
I can't quite remember how that happened. There was just too much going on. Like, I know at some point, and that was really, again, Lear was making a big deal. He started naming off the people that he knew that suddenly disappeared, and he said, let you talk to this guy, George Knapp, and if you go out on the air, they'll be afraid to talk to you. I said, don't be afraid to do anything, I'll do anyway. He did.
And then it kind of hits the fan. They're really mad at him, and then that's a lot of really bad stuff started happening. And then we decided to record an interview just for safety in case something happened to him. So it was a couple of hours on tape, and I under the condition that I wouldn't use that until Bob said okay. It was 8 months. 8 months ago, we got the okay, and I worked on it every day and talked him into allowing me to use it and tell the story as soon as he was still alive. And on the day that we were ready to broadcast it, it was part 6 of a 9-part report. Bob suddenly changes his mind and grabs the video.
Well, because you were going to say who I was, yeah.
We get ready to identify him. We're 10 minutes from going on the air. We're wrestling over the tape. As a UFO profiteer and messiah coming forward and making up stories, he was very reluctant like this, I can tell you. You're regretting it. I mean, we heard a little bit of it. At times you certainly regret it.
Yeah, it has.
But it's not good.
No, I mean, that's what's kind of entertaining to me. People, go, oh, you made up some story. I bet you're making all kinds of money out of it. Where? I want my cut. But no, and to be honest, I did have the opportunity. I mean, New Line Studios in Columbia. When they heard all this, I mean, the president of Columbia Pictures came down and you were there, right? Yeah. And he said, we're doing this, and and they started giving me screenplays, and it was just a James Bond movie. They had me running over the tops of cars. It's like, look, either you tell the story how it happened, or leave me out and just make up a UFO story. But you can't. It has to be exactly what happened. And so it was just constantly everything being turned down. It was like, you know what, we're not doing it.
I mentioned before about me going out and doing presentations about you, and one of the things I always said is that, look, Bob doesn't show up at UFO events, he's not cashing in on it. There's nothing wrong with those who do. If you can make some money on it, more power to you, because it fuels the research. But you've never done that before. That's not the case anymore. Why did you decide to come here?
Well, I really didn't.
You are here.
Yeah, I know, I'm here, but I know a lot of people mentioned, 20 there's a big UI, and I've never been to a UFO convention. I mean, I've been like Star Trek conventions, people walking around with antennas and stuff. But, I didn't want to be having part of that, and, so people that arrange this and no, this is a class thing, just come down, it's 25 years, once in your life, just say something, and well, everything I said has already been said either on the internet, and why would anybody who cared to just hear it again? But I finally just said, okay, fine. Just to stop you from hassling. But it really didn't end there, and that was just a moment of weakness, and then and one of the reasons why is because it was like 2 or 3 months away. So yeah, February, fine, whatever you want to do then. And then anyway, a few weeks went by, and it kind of hit me that one day that date's going to come around, and so it was more than that. Maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. So anyway, I called them back here and I said, I'm really thinking about not doing that, and I'm sorry. And I told my wife and George, and and I really didn't realize there were this many people that were interested, and they said you can't back out. We've been advertising. There's going to be a lot of people here, and I said you got 15 or 50 speakers or something. It's just one less that's going to be here. But
seriously, you don't recognize, you don't understand that people are so interested in seeing you. It doesn't register.
Well, no, but I appreciate that. I do. But they made that clear, aside from the fact that they sue me if I did. So, I said in a nice way. So I will go. So I don't care.
Well, the fact that you said because I keep pestering you, I think that's
no. So I did. I did give them my word. I do it, and it's not like it's too bad. No problem.
When you heard the presentation about how far this story has traveled, how many industries and businesses it has launched. The extraterrestrial highway, that's from you. Las Vegas 51 to baseball team.
People just capitalize on it really quickly.
When you see Area 51 mentioned in movies and some Tom Hanks movie or Independence Day or something, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to grasp. It's almost I don't know how to describe it.
So the experience here so far has been pretty good for you. Might you do it again, or might you open up a little bit, or?
There's nothing else. That's the whole story.
Last time you got a list of names that you haven't given me.
No, believe me. I could really make it easy to verify a bunch of things, and I do not want to do that at all. I really would prefer people don't buy the story, because it makes my day-to-day life has nothing to do with UFOs, and being the UFO guy is a big problem. It's hard to get contracts and be taken seriously, and I don't want the last thing I want is a movie coming out or something like that. It would be a catastrophe.
Be a great movie if they made it right.
Well, I don't know.
It was amazing how a couple years ago, there was a story about this Russian spy that was killed by using polonium.
They called me, right?
National network people want to do a story and see where can we get polonium, and they find online. Well, here's a guy who sells it. It's bottles of it.
They were at the house the first day, but.
Do you get stopped? I mean, you got people stop you on the road. I know you get emails and phone calls.
Well, emails, people asking, questions that, that really aren't up on, the topic at all. It's, has anyone tried to, duplicate one of these crafts? Well, that was the whole aim of the project there. But, they're just hearing that there's a guy that might have worked on flying saucers. This is his email. By the way, I'm not on Facebook. There's these guys that pretend to be me, and I keep getting these emails. Hey, thanks for friending me on Facebook. What are you talking about?
Well, I think this is our time. I've been asking questions from the submitted by folks, including in this. And, I think that people are just excited to hear it directly from you tell the story. And again, I certainly understand why people would have a hard time believing it, but it's true.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It really happened.
Yeah, exactly that way.
Well, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, Bob, and maybe I can pester him into doing this again sometime.
Thank you very much.